very strong position to make the next farm bill work for the Mississippi River and plug some consequential gaps in U.S. policy on drought and intense heat. Senator Boozman led the bipartisan charge to pass into law the nation's first lower Mississippi River ecosystem restoration project. We are working with Senator Boozman and Senator Klobuchar now to introduce the Safeguarding the Mississippi River Together Act. I know that was a mouthful, but we're going to make it work because this kind of prompts the USDA to think about a healthy Mississippi River basin and also spearhead what's happening in the Healthy Watershed Initiative program. And so right now we are under a program called EQIP. We would like to see this program pulled from under the umbrella and stand alone and become an independent program. We want to use the Farm Bill to give the nation a comprehensive drought policy. And so my senator says a lot about what happens as far as food security. He said, what happens with food security is a matter of national security. And so with that being said, I now bring my cohort, Mayor Cook, come on over.
Thank you, Mayor Logan. You are correct. My senator is the ranking member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, but just a few miles south of my city on the Mississippi River is the 2nd Congressional District of Minnesota, currently represented by Mississippi River Caucus member Angie Craig, who is also the ranking member of the House Agricultural Committee. So I think our Farm Bill priorities have some relevant jurisdiction in both chambers. The Mississippi River accounts for over 50% of my state's agricultural exports. In fact, the mayors of the Mississippi River will be coming to the Twin Cities region this coming September for the MRCTI annual meeting. We hope to show a newly reauthorized Farm Bill that elevates the Mississippi River to the national priority it needs to be. To talk more about that and our planned conversation with the White House tomorrow, I'll recognize Mayor Nick White of New Madrid, Missouri.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Cook. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick White. I'm the mayor of New Madrid, Missouri. For those of you that don't know where that's at, it's right in the heartland of the United States, where we're located right on the Mississippi River. Blytheville's just directly south of me. We're neighbors. Missouri's recently seen its share of disaster impacts, especially when it comes to drought. My region just climbed out of 2 years of an on again, off again drought that cost the nation over $26 billion in losses from 2022 to 2024. My city of New Madrid is situated in the Boot Hill, Missouri, where agriculture is a cornerstone of the economy. Water security for our region is paramount for drinking water, irrigation, and commodity movement. President Trump signed an executive order during his first term on modernizing America's water resource management and water infrastructure. The president formed the nation's first water subcabinet and ensured federal coordination on water policy, on water policy to develop federal coordination on and address drought, disasters, as well as shocks to the global commodity supply chain. It was a monumental step toward improving national management of our most crucial waterways and basins. Now, President Trump has an opportunity to pick up where he left off and use the water subcabinet to fill major policy gaps for drought, water security, manufacturing, agriculture, and supply chain resilience. We are going to the White House tomorrow to ask President Trump to reinstate the water subcabinet and work with our mayors to support national drought policy and make the Mississippi River Basin Healthy Watersheds Initiative a standalone program within the USDA to ensure a renewed reliability on American production and export movement. But we're not expecting the government to do it all. In fact, by deploying 100,000 acres of natural infrastructure with Ducks Unlimited through 45 cities and 9 states over the next few years, which will complement the Waterway Security Act implemented by the White House. At this time, I'd like to invite Mayor Reynolds back up to the podium.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks to the mayors for outlining our priorities as we're here in Washington this week. We can't emphasize enough the economic importance of our region and its impact on U.S. trade. It is substantial. That's the trade, supply chain, manufacturing, all of it. Without a fully functioning Mississippi River corridor, we have the potential to lose $164 billion in exports and potentially $1 trillion in supply movement. A working river needs a working ecological system to deliver essential environmental services such as fresh water, which is a $450 billion economy on the Mississippi alone. So again, we've outlined our priorities as an organization as we move forward. And again, I thank all the mayors for being here to help support the agenda of MRCTI in the next year and for this new administration. We do have a number of items that have come up repeatedly in our meetings that I'm sure that there's some interest in otherwise. And so just to briefly go through those and talk about how we're looking at some of those items as an organization. First of all, tariffs. Tariffs have been discussed repeatedly during our time here in Washington. And MRCTI has had roughly the same position on tariffs for the past 8 years. And the tariffs that have been announced recently will have different impacts on our communities, depending on what they are and how they function in the global trade market. But we will and generally keep to the concept that trade wars and protectionism tend to create more losers than winners for much of our economy along the Mississippi River. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Canada, Mexico, China, the Mississippi River's 3 largest trading partners. A trade war would result in an immediate drop in corn and soy exports to the tune of hundreds of millions of tons, resulting in Brazil and Argentina gaining the lost market share, which would be difficult for American farmers to reclaim in the future. Please note that we, again, are evaluating closely how tariffs impact all of our communities. The key to remember is that regardless of how this shakes out, regardless of how the tariffs develop into the future, that we are constantly supporting each other and working collaboratively to improve our communities. And that will continue regardless of what the trade situation is and how the tariffs are impacting our communities. Another issue that's come up repeatedly are the layoffs or firing of federal employees and how those are impacting our communities. We definitely, as leaders in our communities, as mayors, we are always supportive of making public services more efficient and responsive to the needs of our taxpayers. And in this case, the goal is to remove federal employees to increase that efficiency and responsiveness to the needs of American taxpayers. Some of those are more impactful for our communities than others. And the recent NOAA layoffs are concerning because of the overwhelming disaster mitigation service that agency provides to our communities. One of our priorities that we're going to share with the White House tomorrow is the need to keep the nation's stream gauge network fully supported because it is vital to monitoring floods, low water, and various cycles. The gauge is maintained by USGS, but the data is applied by NOAA. And the third item that we have talked about repeatedly during this visit to Washington is federal funding freezes and how those impact our communities. And it can be significant. Locally, statewide, and most states attribute about 35% of their budgets to federal allocations. Those are monies that flow directly into our communities that we utilize to provide services. And that can be anywhere from purchasing bulletproof vests for our police officers to fixing roads and everything in between. There are a lot of examples. We know that federal funding freezes may have, if continued over the long term, can have debilitating effects on our communities and many cities across the nation. And so, again, this is another situation where we will be continuing to monitor how these federal funding freezes impact our communities. And as always, we will work as an organization collaboratively and in a way to, again, help support our communities and improve the lives of the people who live in our communities. And with that, we'll take questions from the press in the room and over the phone. Please identify yourself and your news outlet.
Anybody, excuse me, if anybody on the Zoom would like to ask a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or take yourself off mute.
I have a question from Elise at the Louisiana Illuminator. How high are your expectations for securing the appropriations outlined in the policy goals with the Trump administration? Goal to cut federal spending by up to $2 trillion. And I can say that again slower.
Can you do that?
Yeah, from Elise Plunk.
Elise, I'm asking your question now.
Elise Plunk from the Louisiana Illuminator. How high is MRCTI's expectations for securing appropriations outlined in the policy goals, given the Trump administration's goal to cut $2 trillion in spending?
I would change the word expectation to aspiration, because we have a great deal of hope that we know we have reasonable goals for our organization. We know that these goals and the strategies that we've outlined and the policies that we're looking at will greatly contribute to the health and benefit of our communities and, in fact, the entire nation. We have learned recently to temper our expectations and look more aspirationally to how we can achieve these goals and in relation to the funding. So to put a concrete number on that, or to put a concrete limit on what we think that we can achieve or what we might not be able to achieve, is somewhat unrealistic at this point. What we know is that we have important goals, we have reasonable goals, and we are looking at ways to, again, not only benefit our communities, but the nation as a whole.
That was the only one that was in the chat.
Chat, if anybody else has a question, take yourself off mute to ask a question or put it in the chat, please.
All right. I want to thank all of you for joining us here online or in the room here today. Again, thank you to all the mayors for joining us here at our Capitol meeting in Washington. This has been an amazing experience, and we look forward to our meeting with the administration tomorrow at the White House. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you all. And this concludes the press conference.